Hey, my friends, Derek from Bomb Socks with more Bomb Bites, where we feast upon the words of Christ one bite at a time. So I want to take you to one of the most well-known stories of the Old Testament. It is the story of David and Goliath. In fact, we've even created a pair of bomb socks, one of our Bible-themed bomb socks, where I got David on one side, Goliath on the other side. We love this one. It's kind of fun. But it's one of the most well-known stories, and there's so many different avenues to go with this. So I decided to go kind of a different route today that I think will help you. First of all, I came across this years ago, and I thought this was kind of fun. It said the Israelite army looked at Goliath and said, "He's so big, we'll never be able to defeat him." But David looked at the same Goliath and said, "He's so big, how can I miss?" Which tells you that perspective is everything, as now you've got little itty bitty Goliath and big, huge David in that story. I want to focus on one of the things right now, responsibilities that are placed upon a young man, okay? David at the time is a young man, and all of a sudden has a crazy responsibility placed on him to basically deliver Israel from the Philistines. Now again, this can be a daunting task here. President Spencer W. Kimball had a quote years ago where he said, "Now my young brothers," now he's speaking to the young men of the church here. That's kind of the direction I want to go here for a minute. "Remember that every David has a Goliath to defeat, and every Goliath can be defeated. You will meet Goliaths who threaten you. If your Goliath is a desire to wantonly destroy, or the temptation to lust and to sin, or the urge to avoid activity, whatever is your Goliath, he can be slain, but remember, to be the victor, one must follow the path that David followed." So I kind of want to approach this 1 Samuel 16 and 17, using the story of David and Goliath as a pattern for preparing youth for missionary service. Whether you're a young man or a young woman, this is an opportunity to be able to learn from this story on how to be a more effective missionary. So first of all, let's look at the challenger. When I say challenger, I mean that very loosely because, spoiler alert, you know who wins the story, okay? So, how does David remind you of Jesus Christ, first of all? This is important to understand. The name David literally means beloved son, which I think is kind of cool. So, first of all, he's responsible for caring for his father's sheep in 1 Samuel 16:11. He is anointed in the midst of his brethren to be the deliverer and defender of Israel, because Saul, kind of at this point, is a train wreck, and so you've got David coming in to save the day. He came forth from Bethlehem, which is house of bread. He was bearing bread to sustain his brethren who are at war with the enemy. That's in chapter 17. So you can see automatically how David is very much similar to Jesus Christ. Now, the champion, as Goliath is called in chapter 17, he taunts the Israelites. He presents himself every morning and every evening for 40 days, challenging any Israelite to fight him. So it almost sounds like as you're doing this, you have got a type of Jesus Christ going against a type of Satan with this. Goliath is very much from a place called Gath, which Goliath itself, the name Goliath means banished or cast out, which I think is interesting. And Gath is pressure or to press upon, very similar to the name Gethsemane. It's a press right there. So you've got this champion, quote unquote champion type of Satan, putting pressure daily. And he's an imposing force when you start looking at his height, his armor, his sword. He's 6 cubits and a span. His armor is 5,000 shekels of brass, and his sword is 600 shekels. And I'm going to save you some time there. Bible Dictionary Weights and Measures puts it all together, basically. Now, again, whether he is actually this tall, you got Goliath at 9 feet 9 inches. Guys, that's huge. His armor, 125 to 200 pounds, and his sword, just the sword, 15 to 25 pounds. Now, I've had a lot of people tell, they're like, was he really that tall, or is this just a lost in translation thing? And the answer is, I don't know. But we do know the fact that Goliath was an imposing force. Whether he's 9 feet, whether he's 7 feet, it doesn't matter. This guy was the champion, and the Israelites were scared of him. He was an imposing force. So you can study that out on your own, but just know he's a beast, and they've got to defeat him, and he is the one who is taunting them on a daily basis. So you got chapter 17, verses 8 and 9, where you got Goliath taunting them. It says, "He stood and cried unto the armies of Israel and said unto them, Why are ye come out to set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine, ye servants of Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, Then will we be your servants. But if I prevail against him and kill him, then ye shall be our servants and serve us. So it seems like the entire conflict between Israel, yea, Philistines, boo, was to be determined by a single contest involving two men. So Israel's freedom was at stake and placed on the shoulders of a young man. Okay, so like I said, I want to focus on kind of that idea of missionary service and how to help empower a young man. Because you watched General Conference, you saw what President Nelson said and what Elder Ballard said about the importance of a young man, re-enthroning that idea of serving a mission. How the last couple years have been kind of crazy with the pandemic and things, and that was difficult. He's like re-enthroning that idea. It's like, let's get our young men out there and let's get them out there serving missions as priesthood responsibility. So let me see if we can help you with that. So just take a couple minutes, and I want you to go through the story of David and Goliath. Many of you know the story. So 1 Samuel 17, 20 to 54. Read it as if you were preparing for missionary service. Now, here are some things that you could consider. What is the cause that prompts David to fight Goliath? How does the world generally view youth? What do verses 34 to 37 have to do with missionary preparation, if you were to read that with that set of eyes? What lions and bears must be defeated first before you go up against the Goliaths? What popular Book of Mormon verse does verse 32 remind you of? Now, if you were to take 5 smooth stones with you on a mission, what would the stones represent? For example, the stone of faith. In verses 45 to 47, what does David seem to understand about God that can help a missionary? And you contrast verse 24 with verse 52. What caused the big difference? And you can look and see anything else that you think could help a missionary prepare themselves more effectively. So just take a couple minutes and go through and see what you can find. So just a couple of things that I thought was kind of interesting is verse 42. It says, when the Philistine looked about, he saw David, and he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and of a fair countenance. Disdain means insulted him as being unworthy to stand up against him. So David was probably no more than about 16 years old when he fought Goliath. And he is described in the scriptures as ruddy, which means red-haired or rosy-cheeked or youthful. So you can imagine this 5'0" kid going up against this giant. I remember seeing a quote from Gordon B. Hinckley that I loved. He said, I've told groups of our missionaries as I've met with them in various parts of the world, well, you're not much to look at, but you're all the Lord has. And then the miracle is that as they serve the Lord, they become giants in capacity and achievement. You know, I mentioned a good verse from the Book of Mormon. So when you go to 1 Samuel 17, verse 32, it said, David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him, meaning Goliath. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. I love how it makes reference in 32a to 1 Nephi 3:7. I will go and do the things which the Lord hath commanded. So I love the promises that have been given here. So if you read that story, it's a familiar story, but if you read it with the eyes of helping a young man or a young woman who wants to serve a mission, but they're feeling a little bit overwhelmed in doing this, read this story, and I think you'll see a lot of parallels that could help out someone. And I love this story, and I know it's true, and it's fun to read with that set of eyes. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for sharing these messages. We love that you do that. And if you haven't already, go check out our amazingly comfortable gospel-themed socks, just like the David and Goliath ones, at bombsocks.com. Godspeed. We'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.